everyone. Today, this week, we're learning about pranayama techniques for increased breath control. So all pranayama increases your breath control, but the reason I'm calling these techniques specifically techniques for breath control is because this is where the technique of breath holding or Kumbhaka comes in. And as I say in the practice video, because pranayama involves slowing our breath, this concept of breath holding or Kumbhaka is actually carried through all of pranayama practices. And that is what gives us breath control. So we're like reining in our breath, slowing it down on an exhale to allow our body to absorb the oxygen we've breathed in, and fully exhaling as well to get all of the carbon dioxide out. Also slowing the inhale to efficiently fill our lungs and use the air. So this concept of Kumbhaka, or holding the breath to slow it, is important for pranayama. But in these practices, we are learning Kumbhaka, which is just actually holding the breath, meaning stopping it completely. At the top and the bottom of the breath, meaning when you have full lungs and when you have empty lungs. So we'll be doing two practices called Viloma breathing and square breathing. Viloma breath, you'll see in the practice video, involves interrupting the breath as you inhale and then fully normally exhaling. So as you're interrupting the breath, we breathe in, pause, breathe in, pause, breathe in, full lungs, pause, and then exhale. And with each of these pauses or kumbhaks, there are bandhas that we have to learn, binds or locks. And those locks allow us to hold the air in without creating unnecessary extra pressure on our internal organs, such as our eardrums, for example. The second breath that we're learning is square breathing, also involves Kumbhaka. We breathe in, fill the lungs fully, hold the breath for just as long as it took you to breathe in, then breathe out for the same amount of time, and then hold the breath completely empty lungs. Hold the exhale with completely empty lungs, and it makes a square. Imagine a square. So we would breathe in 4 counts, hold 4 counts, exhale 4 counts, hold 4 counts with empty lungs. And again, each spot where you're holding, where you're doing Kumbhaka, you're performing 3 bandhas. So I'm teaching you the bandhas this week as well. And those bandhas are introduced in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. So those fall under the category of Hatha Yoga, which we're learning. We're learning Hatha Yoga and we're learning Ashtanga Yoga. This combination of these two traditional types of yoga creates what I was trained in, just traditional Indian yoga. These two, Ashtanga and Hatha traditions, are what the traditional basis of yoga in India is composed of. So I just described Kumbhaka or Kumbhaka. I think I've said it before, but in India, it's common practice to drop the A at the end of these Sanskrit words. Whether that's related to the Hindi language or if it's just a common thing that they do. Usually you'll hear, so yoga, you'll hear it called yog, pranayama, pranayam, asana, asan, kumbhaka, kumbhak, bandhas, band. So I'm pointing that out because you may hear things pronounced differently or spelled differently depending where you look. So the 3 bandhas that we're teaching, you'll see them described in detail in the video, but Jalanda Bandha is a jaw lock. So when we inhale and we pause the breath, we want to put our chin forward a little bit in towards the neck and basically close the airway so that you are stopping that pressurized air that you're holding from getting up into your head. And the book describes like protecting your eardrums in this way. Just pressure behind your eyes, for example, as well, you want to prevent. So by creating this lock and putting your jaw down, you're affecting the carotid artery as well. And the book describes that can also, therefore, be effective for reducing high blood pressure. So these practices can be powerful. So practice them carefully and make sure that you follow the guidance that I give you, the do's, the don'ts, and the precautions. If you have high blood pressure, because, this can be used for decreasing high blood pressure, but the book says avoid it if you have high or low blood pressure. unless you're working directly with a teacher. So if you have high or low blood pressure and you know it, you may just want to avoid Jolanda Bandha and any of these Kumbhaka practices, therefore. Meaning don't hold your breath. So that Jolanda Bandha, that's the first bandha. The second is Uddiyana Bandha. That should have, actually, I'll fix the spelling on that. It should have 2 D's and I. Uddiyana Bandha is abdominal lock. So I learned this as a standalone practice, and that's how I've taught it. The book also describes using Uddiyana Bandha during Kumbhaka on an inhale. I didn't directly learn it that way, and I think it's a little bit more dangerous because you're trying to draw in your abdomen while you have air in your lungs. So I'm not teaching it that way because I didn't directly learn it that way. So I'm going to avoid that lock during the inhale. But I teach Uddiyana Bandha as its own separate practice where it can be practiced this way as well independently. You first exhale all the air out of your lungs, and then you draw in your belly button like you're sucking in your tummy. And you can actually feel with your hand, your abdomen like pulling in under your ribs. That accomplishes creating negative pressure on the abdomen and drawing blood toward those abdominal organs, therefore increasing digestion and blood flow to the area. And then it can also be used in Kundalini to activate certain chakras. I am not trained in Kundalini. I don't know a lot about chakras, but I'm somewhat aware of like the 8 different points on the chakra diagram. That's about as far as I go. Mula Bandha is the third bandha that we learn. And Mula is related to the Muladhara chakra, which is the root chakra at the base of your spine. So that bandha is performed by basically engaging all of the pelvic floor muscles. So we're creating a lock kind of at the bottom of our breathing range and at the top of our breathing range to hold in that air that we're holding. And so there are different Sanskrit words I didn't memorize, but one means Kumbhaka, that holds air in, like after I'm doing this with my bottom hand, you're holding the air in. And then the other means exhaled Kumbhaka, so holding the air out of your body. So after you finish exhaling, that's the second place where we do Kumbhaka, holding all the air out of your body and keeping your lungs empty for a moment. Only hold your breath out or in as long as is comfortable. And by that, I mean, don't find yourself gasping. You need to know when you're going to have to breathe in or out, and then slowly release the locks and casually breathe in. Don't shock your body by gasping for air because you can cause unnecessary pressure to your lungs and your organs that way. Pranayama is introduced traditionally as a very powerful practice. You can see great benefits, but you can also cause indigestion if you don't practice carefully with good posture, protecting your internal organs, following the guidance for each practice, and moving in a slow and controlled way. These things are very important when you're practicing pranayama. So again, these are the 2 practices we're learning this week. Viloma, the 3-stepped breathing, and square breathing, where you hold on the inhale and the exhale, 4 counts. In, hold, out, hold. So do's and don'ts. Like I was saying, sit erect with your neck in line with your spine. You want to allow plenty of room for your lungs and your internal organs to be relaxed during these practices. You want to breathe fully in and out. Again, I have to fix that slide, sorry. Fully in and fully out. Listen to your body. Place and remove locks in a slow and controlled manner, just like we do in our asana practice. Always release Jolanda Bandha, the jaw lock, before you exhale. This isn't like a ujjayi breathing, ocean breathing, where you are restricting airflow at all. This bandha should only be used while you're holding the breath. And when it's time for you to do the exhale, release it. Always, before practicing Uddiyana Bandha, abdominal lock, exhale completely. So only perform that one with empty lungs. That's how I learned it. And I'm not guiding you to do any sort of breath holding with air in your lungs using Uddiyana Bandha. Don't strain your breath. And again, don't gasp for air during Uddiyana Bandha. You have to focus and use your self-control and feel what your body needs. Before you gasp for air, release your abdominal lock, then let your air in. You'll know what I mean once you try it. So there are a lot of benefits to these practices. Essentially, Viloma and square breathing are great for increasing breath control. Because you're practicing holding the breath, there's a distinct, self-control and breath control practice that's happening. These practices can be useful for musicians if you're a singer, if you're a wind instrument player. I went to music school, so I remember learning about these practices and immediately thinking those could be useful for those people. Although I play violin and piano, so that those aren't really breath control instruments. But anyway, we can all benefit from controlling our breathing and using our lungs more efficiently. Another benefit, we're protecting our internal organs from pressure when we practice these bandhas during Kumbhaka. So the binds are important. They provide a benefit. Reading about the bandhas, these are mostly benefits of bandhas. The ancient texts say that they eliminate death, so I'm kind of, joking about that, but that's how it's described. Essentially, it may make you feel more youthful or energetic. Also, performing the bandhas allows us to focus our energy on our lungs and contain the breath into our lung area. Specifically, Jalandhar Bandha, because of its pressure on the carotid artery and its association with the brain, blood flow to the brain, we're able to decrease blood pressure. Again, if you have high or low blood pressure and you know it, don't practice this unless you're working with a yoga therapist and they directly guide you. Other benefits, pressure and blood flow to the abdominal organs during Uddiyana Bandha. We're bringing blood flow to those internal organs, and therefore we're increasing digestive power. Anytime we put pressure on the abdomen in these yoga practices, we're, in theory, improving the function of those abdominal organs. But be very careful, and you have to follow the specific guidance on how to do these properly. So you don't want to just put unnecessary pressure or, in the wrong way, because that can also cause indigestion or other issues. Contradiction. So don't do these practices, certain practices, if you have certain conditions. Kumbhaka, anytime you're holding the breath. You should avoid holding the breath during pregnancy. If you're pregnant, don't do any practices that involve holding the breath, because obviously it's very important that your baby is always getting oxygen. And they're very responsive to breath holding, and their heart rate responds immediately, so don't hold your breath. Jalandhar Bandha, avoid it if you have high or low blood pressure or respiratory problems. Uddiyana Bandha, avoid it if you have hernia, abdominal ailments, heart trouble, or defective circulation. Defective is how they said it in the book. So if you know that you have any circulation issues, you may want to avoid Uddiyana Bandha. Because it's based on doing this practice to increase circulation to your abdomen. So if your circulation is not responsive and you're aware of that, you may just want to avoid this practice. Mula Bandha, avoid if you have hernia or piles. That's another word for hemorrhoids. And that's it. So happy breathing. I hope you enjoy these practices. It's a unique week. Last week we were focused on just things that you may have seen before, deep breathing and in different styles. But I am guessing that Kumbhaka and Bandhas, this idea of breath holding with locks, might be new to you because they're not practiced that often in yoga practices, popular Western yoga classes. So I look forward to seeing your videos, and I love hearing your questions and your comments. Thank you.